Hello, guys. This is JP from Cop Chasers. I'm back. Sorry, the scanner's going off. Um, got some things to talk about this morning. There was a shooting in Keene, New Hampshire, and I was listening to it real time. Um, and there's a lot of information that the police aren't telling, and now they're threatening people with arrest for trying to release the juvenile's name online or on a public forum. This is what the police said. Um, just to give you, before I go into that, I'll give you a uh, brief summary of what happened. So um, last week, a 17-year-old was shot in the abdomen, and then let me move away from the scanner because this is bothering me. They just decided to stop talking now. Um, he got shot in the abdomen and died. I was listening to it real time. They said Swansea units were went to Pine Grove Apartments. This was like between 3 and 4 a.m. It's estimated. I don't have that information in front of me. And they called the Signal 1000, which is a raid. So Keene, New Hampshire units called the Signal 1000 using the Cheshire County dispatch code on their channel. So a handful of Keene units were on their channel instead of the Keene regular channel. I actually unlocked it. I had them muted up until that point. So I heard the raid and they took someone into custody, and shortly thereafter they said they transported a juvenile to Concord, which is, far away. Um, so I heard the whole thing. So anyways, people online were saying the alleged perpetrator's name. So the police came out with this on their website when they said they made an arrest recently. It says, since the alleged perpetrator is a juvenile, the law precludes any further information from being released at this time. See RSA 169B36. It shall be unlawful for any person to disclose court records or any part thereof to persons other than those persons entitled to access under RSA 169B35, except by a court order. Any person who is knowingly violates this provision shall be guilty of a misdemeanor. So they're basically threatening people to arrest for releasing the juvenile's name. So this was like all over the internet. So people were like afraid of saying this kid's name, even though the alleged shooter is also a juvenile. His name's been all over the internet, all over Facebook, because it was a normal hangout spot. It happened early in the morning. A bunch of juveniles and teenagers hang out in this parking lot off of Winchester Street in front of Walmart and Home Goods in Harbor Freight in Keene, New Hampshire. It's a popular spot. The cops always know they're there. They raise hell, peel out and do donuts and stuff like that. But very little happens there. So this thing came out, and I posted. You can share his name. It's free speech, and I got a crap ton of like pushback on it. People were like sending me messages, calling me a jerk. They can't release his name. It's against the law. You're gonna get arrested for saying his name. So I want to reiterate. A Supreme Court ruling. So this is the case. If you can look it up yourself, the case of Smith versus Daily Mail Publishing was a landmark United States Supreme Court case concerning freedom of the press and publication of lawfully attained truthful information. Facts. 2 West Virginia newspapers published the name of a juvenile arrested for murder. which they obtained through routine news gathering. Basically, they just talked to people and found out the perpetrator's name, just like this gentleman. They were indicted under a state law prohibiting the publication of a juvenile's name without court approval, which is just like the statute that New Hampshire says. The issue: the Supreme Court considered if West Virginia statute violated the First and 14th Amendments by criminalizing the publication of juveniles' lawfully obtained truthful name. Key principle: Daily Mail's principle. The case established the Daily Mail principle, stating that the media generally cannot be punished for publishing truthful, lawful information, even if it's sensitive. This principle isn't absolute, and state interests of the highest order could potentially justify restriction. But the ruling is the court found the statute unconstitutional, siding with the newspaper. The court held that the state's interest in protecting juvenile anonymity did not outweigh the freedom of the press to publish truthful, lawful, obtained information. They noted the statute's inconsistency in order to keep public interest. So there's actually a Supreme Court ruling stating that you can publish a name if it's obtained by regular freedom of the press, and that includes social media, because social media is now attached to freedom of the press. The Supreme Court ruled on that too. So Keene PD can't go after people for sharing his name, although like all these people are saying that they're going to come after people for sharing his name. They released the victim's name. I don't understand why they released the juvenile's victim's name and not the perpetrator. But everybody knows his name. And if you guys want to know his name, ask in the comments, and the name will be given. There's no threat of arrest here. It's absolutely absurd and stupid. And the fact that the Keene PD and the Attorney General's office isn't sharing the raid that happened shortly thereafter by Keene PD, none of that information was shared. It's being like hidden under the rug, even though it was on open channels and everything. There was a Signal 1000 in Swansea. An hour and a half, or maybe 2 hours after the shooting, maybe 3. I have to look at the posts to see the exact, at Pine Grove in Swansea, and they arrested somebody, and then they transported somebody to Concord. They have HOC here. The House of Corrections is here. If someone gets arrested as an adult, they just go right down the street and get locked up here. They don't need to transport somebody all the way to Concord unless they're a juvenile, because that's the closest juvenile center for housing juveniles that got in trouble. So I just wanted to read this Supreme Court ruling and the threat of police arrest that people shared the perpetrator's name. They're doing it in kind of like a sneaky way, even though it only applies to court records. I think they were trying to say they can't share it, but it did put the statute out as kind of like a threat. You can perceive that as a threat because people are responding to it as a threat. Multiple people are responding to it as a threat, saying you can't share the kid's name. But a Supreme Court ruling says they can go, take a flying F with that. So you can share his name if it's obtained with, open and legal means. So there you go. I went live because I wanted to share this situation. You guys can look it up online. The shooting in Keene, 17-year-old in Keene, New Hampshire, and look up the case, which is Smith versus Daily Mail Publishing. It's a landmark case, Supreme Court ruling. Even though it was 1979, it still takes precedent that protects free speech and freedom of the press. So there you go. This is JP, and I'm out. and I'll make more updates on other matters very, very soon. And I'll be publishing that. My son's going to be helping me with the channel, and soon we're going to be doing editing and stuff like that. So hopefully we can look forward to that. And I'm going to do some reaction videos to other cop type of videos of people going after police and police interactions and stuff like that, and I'm going to give my opinion on those, because I've been doing this for a very, very, very long time. If you look at my first video, it was before any of these auditors and all these, you know, channels started coming out. I was going after crooked police and police brute tactics, and pushing for police accountability. Now I want to make this clear: I am not a cop hater. I'm not a police hater. I don't hate people in general. I actually get along with quite a few police. I just served a state vacation. So, you know, I definitely know the effects and the lies that they can say on police reports and all that stuff. I'm going to be very, very honest. Police aren't honest. They're trained to lie, and they're trained to perceive, and they're trained to basically see a threat no matter where they go. I think they're trained wrong. I think they need to be retrained, and I also think they need to work a lot less hours, and I think every single one of them need, you know, professional mental health help, because they can't mentally handle the job. Police become cynical extremely fast when they work, and they're working with social issues 90% of the time, dealing with, you know, really, really tough situations, and those tough situations can wound somebody up really, really tight. And you have two sides of a cop. You have a cop that's looked at as a real good guy, and then he's punching somebody, you know, to death at night, or even shooting them in the back, and then lying on a police report on what happened. So you get two sides of a cop. I don't trust any of them because of their training, and they're absolute brainwashed when it comes to being objective. They're not objective when they come. Even if you call them for help, they'll come to a situation and they automatically think you're the perpetrator. And if you exercise your rights, they get even more upset, and they try to throw out various laws for arrest or threat of arrest or detainment the more you speak. And that shouldn't happen. I'm going to put this plain and clear. The Supreme Court has upheld so many rights, and someone's rights in speaking to a cop, criticizing a police officer during detainment, they have a right to do that. Police do not have a right to say, oh, you're resisting, or you're being detained because I'm conducting an investigation. They can make that decision right on the spot, and say they're involved in an investigation just to stop you and to ID you. Well, I have a right to ID you if I detain you. A lot of states have that law. There's no, you know, very little states have a stop and ID law, but they'll use the premise of detainment in order to get your ID, because most states have the law, if you're detained, they have a right to ask you for your ID. So they usually push that even further to disorderly conduct if you argue with them even more, even though the Supreme Court says you can argue, and then they push back even more, and then you're arrested for some crime. And because prosecutions have unlimited access to money, and you have very, very little access to defense, you're probably going to get convicted on it, and you're probably going to plead out, because they're keeping you in jail for preventative detention. Even though preventative detention is illegal, those laws are illegal. They can't hold somebody because you're presumed innocent. You know, the Supreme Court says you're presumed innocent until you're proven guilty. But preventative detention, you're basically guilty, and they're keeping you held. There's a bunch of problems that I want to discuss. Share in the comments your thoughts on all these issues, and this issue with the police threatening people with arrest for sharing the name. I'm very interested in what people think about that. All right, peace.